In this episode we're going to be installing some 12 volt into my new canopy. Now I've gone with a lithium semi-solid state by Renogy, and I've also grabbed their ONE system along with a DC-DC charger and a solar reg inbuilt into that same charger. So we're going to get started by pulling the canopy back apart so we can install the battery and the BMS. So let's get started. So this is the driver side. Now this is the empty box for the dogs. So this wall in here, we need to pull that out, and it's actually not bolted in. I was originally going to bolt it, but it squeezes in there so nice. I just haven't worried about bolting it. And I probably won't, to be honest, because if I ever need to get to the back of the drawers or something's fallen down or whatever, or maintenance on the battery, I can just pull this out. So yeah, just come up here and give this a bit of a pull, and this panel comes down, and then we're going to try and maneuver it out. It's a little bit of a puzzle to get this thing out, but once you get it out, there we go. Now I did carpet both sides as well of this panel. It just makes it look so much better and takes up a bit of noise. And now we have that out, we can see the back side of my whole drawer system. So I'm going to go and unload that side of the canopy, so then we can pull this wall out here and access where we're going to put the battery. All right. It may be a small quarter canopy, but you'd be surprised how much you can actually fit in this thing. Now I need to try and remember where I put the screws, because everything's black, screws are black, so let's try and dig around for them. One down here. So this is our panel where we're going to mount the ONE system, and behind here, this big mess is my temporary wiring, because I fitted this out and then I went away camping, so I wanted some 12 volt while I went away camping for my fridge and the light system. So yeah, this was just a quick get me going with a little fuse here. So we now need to pull this all back apart again. Okay, so I just cut all my Andersons off. Now I'm going to have to go and get some more pins for these. I've just been working out some battery positions here, and I was going to originally mount it long ways like this, but the battery is 530, plus we need a gap for the terminals, and my drawer system is only 500, so we're going to have to mount it upright like this, so it shouldn't be a problem, solid state. And then I'm going to actually, I don't really want to, but I'm going to drill through the canopy to mount the battery. It has these brackets that come with it, so I've just kind of mounted these on. So we're going to mount it up here, and then I probably will put some packers here as well between the drawer system and the battery, because the canopy is obviously quite flimsy being alloy. So yeah, we're going to go and mount that. I'm going to try and use some pot rivets, and then I also will be putting sealant on these as well, because I don't want any water leaking into this canopy. So we'll leave it flat on the bottom, and we just need to leave a couple of 3" to be able to get the rivet gun in there to actually rivet. see how much this bloody wall is flexing. If you want a rivet gun that can actually turn like this, it's a Blue Point rivet gun. Super handy. Okay, so I've been trying to work out where I can put the DC-DC charger. Now, originally I was going to put it up here, like this. It looks kind of neat there. And it does have a bit more breathing room because these things can get quite warm. But I think I'm going to put it here. I much prefer it here because there's 4 wires here that need to go directly to these Andersons. So if it's mounted here, I can just terminate these directly into the Andersons and won't have to extend any wires. The only wires I'll have to extend will be the 2 that go to this battery, and they're going to be going through a fuse anyway. So I can just, you know, sort of run to the fuse and then from the fuse to the battery. And that's how I'll extend them. And the other thing is it's less wires trying to pass through this alloy bit here. Less chance of wires chafing and things like that. So I think it's better here. And you know, if it does get too hot, this is the panel that goes there. I can always cut some vents into here, put a little computer fan or something in there as well. So I think it's just a much better option, and we're going to go with that. Now I'm actually using nut inserts to mount the charger to the canopy, and I'm also sealing around those bolts as well. Now it was time to terminate the DC-DC charger and run the cables to the circuit breaker. Now I think my blowtorch here is a little bit of an overkill, but I am way too impatient for a heat gun. Now these wires here are for my lights that I previously installed into the canopy, so I'm just going to tee them into one wire and then run them to a fuse and a power source. So I just went and picked up an inverter. I was looking in here and I thought, you know what, there's a perfect space for an inverter up there, and I may as well do it now rather than have to do it at a later date. So I went down to Super Cheap, grabbed an inverter. Here we are, let's unbox it. That bad boy. Okay, so now we are just installing the DC-DC charger, feeding the wires through the canopy, and then terminating the Anderson plug. Now this cover for the Anderson plugs is actually 3D printed. I didn't print it myself. I actually bought these, but I'm going to attempt to print them because they're super handy. They also look very neat on the outside of the canopy as well. Now I've just made up the cable to go from the battery to the DC-DC charger. So this is going to go from the battery to our circuit breaker. And then I'm also just filling in the hole. I don't like to use grommets, I much prefer sealant as it fills all of the gaps around the wires. So now it's time to mount the One system. So this thing's pretty cool. It actually has a level in the back of it, so you get it nice and level. And you can power it by either USB-C or the supplied power lead it comes with. So we're going to use this. And we've just got on this panel here somewhere. I reckon that'll probably be the best spot for it. So I need to go and connect all this up, but for now we've got most of it all wired up. So we got our circuit breaker up here, and then BCDC's here, all wired in, fridge is wired in, sort of kept it neat. The hole here, I actually just used sealant on it instead of a grommet. I think sealant is much better because it actually goes between the wires, so it should stop all moisture trying to come in. The batteries here all powered up, so it is all powered up at the moment. So now we just want to get this on, and then after that we'll take a look at putting the inverter on. There is a bit of adjustment on these screws, so if it isn't perfect, we can always readjust it. So it only needs to be a very short lead. We don't really need all of this. So I'm going to go and cut that. Okay, so that is pretty well finished in this department here, and then we just have the inverter to do over here. So this is going to be for our One system screen with the circuit breaker here, and that back on. That's all good. Fridge wiring. We have a fuse up here for the Terralume lights in here. So that's what that fuse is for. We have an earth bus bar, and then yeah, circuit breaker. Looks pretty good. Bolt it up. This one's for our fridge. It runs along here and to an Anderson on the other side. well, actually, no Anderson yet. I've just got it sealed up. So I have another one of these 3D printed covers here that's going to go on the back. So that'll be going there. I may actually put 2 there as well, we'll see. So we're going to have 2 fridges, but the wire is huge, it's 6BNS. Now the fridge wire is also fused off this 60 amp circuit breaker. Now why is it fused off the same one? Because you should always fuse to the wire size. So this is 6BNS cable that's going down here to the fridge. You can see it out here. And then the fridge actually has an internal fuse in here. So the fridge has its own fuse, but what we want to be fusing is the wire, not the component. So that's why it's like that. And then we just have the one 10 amp fuse here for our Terraloon lights. And that's all we need. And it's also obviously fusing the BC-DC, and then under the engine bay, I have another fuse up there.
If I had it my way, I'd be watching you ride through the brown. Be a field full of fireflies, watching us lost time making up. You be, I don't know how much more I can take. You say I'm on my way. If I had it my way.
Alright, so we got the inverter all mounted up, and I'm kind of disappointed with it, to be honest. I thought it was going to be like a smart inverter, you know, Bluetooth or whatever, like the rest of the Renogy system and the whole ecosystem, but it's actually not. It's just like a normal inverter with the manual switch. So that means there's no shunt, there's no nothing, and you know, it's got no connectivity to the One system at all. So luckily I actually had a spare shunt because I originally wasn't going to run this solid state battery. So I ordered the shunt with the kit, and now I've had it left over, so I'm going to use that for the inverter so we can see how much the inverter is actually drawing, and then that will Bluetooth to the One system. I've got this cable here that was left over from my winch. So I'm thinking I may as well put this thing to use. So we'll run this up here from the positive and then down through our fuse. Fuse is probably going to have to go here. I did want to glue it to the battery, but it's going to be too tall and it will hit on the draw system. Okay, here's our battery cable made up. So this is going to go from the battery to the fuse here. This is the old winch cable that I had. So it was sleeved in this stuff here. But just put some non-split on there. So we're going to get this bolted up. Okay, now we need to make one cable from here up to the positive. Alright, so we have 2 cables made up now. We got one for the earth, so from the inverter here down to the shunt, and then one from the fuse up to the positive. So they're both black. It's my car, I'm the only one who's going to be working on this. So I would much prefer everything being black, and at the end of the day, if you can't identify what's positive and negative without red heat shrink, you probably shouldn't be touching it. This stuff is super hard to move. This is 0 BNS. Preferably I would have used 2 BNS, but I don't have any. This was the last one, so now we've had to go to 0 BNS, which is even thicker and so much harder to move. make sure that this shunt cover is actually going to fit back on. Yep. The last cable, so this is the one from the shunt to the negative. So the shunt runs on the negative. They're all done over here. Now I'm not going to conduit this because it's too tight of a bend, I think. Plus it's the negative anyway, so it doesn't really need to be insulated. If it shorts out, it doesn't matter. Alright, now I think we can put the draw system back in, so everything's all working, all connected up. The only thing I have left to do now is to run power to the tent. Originally that was coming from the Anderson out the front, but I don't want the wires running down the front of the canopy anymore. So we will get to that shortly, but for now I'm going to go and put all the draw system back in, so the car's semi-complete. I don't know how I fluked this, but I never planned to actually put an inverter in there, and then, you know, went down and got one, and it is absolutely perfect. It just squeezes in there. So we've got the inverter, batteries in there. This little piece here is just because the draw system actually isn't bolted down to the floor. It's sort of sandwiched in there. It's sandwiched up the top rail here. And then this is for any sideways force, but yeah, she's solid, she doesn't go anywhere. One other bonus as well is I actually cut this panel too short when I built the drawers. So this side is longer than this side. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to use it anyway because you can't see it and it's at the back. And that panel goes in the back here. So we actually have, you know, an inch here of a gap, right? So that's actually going to be beneficial for the inverter when it's on. So here's that little hole I was talking about for the inverter. So right back here, the inverter will actually be able to breathe all out through here. Pretty handy.
So now it's time to get onto the tent. So I actually found out we can unzip the canvas, which makes it super easy to work on myself. Previously when I put this Anderson plug here, I had to get someone to help me because I couldn't obviously access the inside and the outside at the same time to be able to do up the nut and bolt. So yeah, unzipping the canvas is the way to go if you're trying to work on your tent. Now this is the 3D printed cover, the single cover that I'm installing on the bottom of the tent. Now these look so much better and it'll just keep it out of the weather a little bit. You can also probably drill a little hole in the actual cover itself so any water going into the cover can drain out. Now once all the holes are drilled, I am just going to seal up all these holes to stop any moisture being able to get into the tent and then cover it with this aluminium tape.
Okay, so now we have the Anderson plug cover installed. I've just put some aluminium tape over it and I'm also going to alloy tape the rest of the wiring there. Now this is our wire that originally we had powering the tent. So that's our cover installed under there. Looks so much better. Now I'm going to plug that in and then I don't have any more of these covers unfortunately, so I'm going to have to just use a gland and we're just going to stick it like that. So the wire will just sort of run up and straight into the Anderson and it'll just look a lot neater than running down the front of the canopy here. I originally had it tied up to these points here, running down into here, but yeah, it'll just look so much neater and you won't get any wire flapping on the canopy or anything like that. So I've just got our cover back off and our hole's going to be up in there. So we'll go and drill that and then wire it in. Putting dielectric grease in all of the connectors just to make them last a bit longer. Alright, so here's our cable. Now we just need to wire it in. It's going to start to get messier and messier now with all this bloody stuff going on in here. I think.
Watched any of my previous videos, you'll know I love to use these heat shrink joiners. So you crimp them down and then you heat shrink them down. and they are completely waterproof, and they're far better than a solder joint in my opinion.
Okay, so it's all wired in now. We got both our fuses here, so one's for the lights and then one's for the tent. Basic. Now I can put this panel back on for good. And here's our wire powering our tent. So it looks much neater like that now. Just sitting here. I could probably put a peak lamp here if I really wanted to, but I think that's just fine. So while we have the tent dismantled this far, with the canvas completely unzipped, I'm going to go and tape up those wires, but I also want to sort this out because it's just crap. Like, look at this shit. So I'm going to cut these off and wire them directly into the box onto this switch, and then I'm going to switch over these outlets to actually stay on all the time, because at the moment you turn the switch on and off and it turns all these outlets off. It just kills the whole tent, which is annoying because if you want to charge your phone, turn the lights off, you have to unplug these. So I'm going to get started by pulling apart this little box. Just held in with a couple of screws. Alright, so this is the mess that's behind these switches. Now I have actually added a couple of things in myself. So originally there was an Anderson plug just on this one side. This is where this wire goes. So that's usually your power into your tent. But my whole setup is on the passenger side of the car. This is the driver's side. So I chose to run my own wiring and then fit that Anderson plug you just seen on this side. So that powers the tent. And then I thought I would leave this plug here, the factory one, for the awning. So when I put an awning on, then the power's already there and you just plug it in. So we're going to go and tidy this up a little bit. Starting with these bloody lights. So we're just going to go, and that's plenty enough. So we're just going to cut these little things here off. Now we're going to get a bit of conduit. So this is our power outlet hub, I guess you would call it. So we have the switch, so I'm going to use this switch for the lights, and then we have, for some reason, we have 2 cigarette lighter plugs plus two USBs. Now that's just an overkill. That's too much. We don't need all that. So what we're going to do is, I figured that this one here looks like a socket with just a switch plugged into it. So same deal with this. I want another switch in here, so I'm going to pop that in there and I'm going to cut that off with a grinder so we can actually install this switch into here. Now what this switch is going to be for is our Starlink. Now I have this DC-DC converter, so this will actually convert from 12 volts to 30 volts. Now I know the Starlinks can run on 12, and I do run mine on 12, but I think once the voltage starts to drop is when you'll really notice it. So if we run this, we shouldn't have any problems. So it's going to actually fit perfectly in here, and then hopefully our switch is going to fit. It is going to be tight, but I think we'll be all right. Now the only other problem is these can get quite hot, so we're just going to have to be a trial and error. So hopefully we can get that in there, and then we can get our Starlink powered up as well, all off a switch. Okay, so we're almost done in the tent. We have our box mounted back up. Now I've taped down also my wire that goes to my Terraloon light underneath the rooftop. So directly under here there's a Terraloon light. So that's the wire for that. So now my next idea is to try and get a wire up here for the Starlink, because I want all of the wiring hidden. I don't want to see any wiring externally. So I got this wire here on the switch as originally planned, and I want to try and somehow get it up here and up under this somehow, so we can mount the Starlink up the top on the outside of that and have power. Now originally I was thinking about running the wire in here, but I think when these things actually clamp down, a lot of the material and canvas actually sort of sandwiches in here, so I don't think we're going to have any room, unfortunately. So I don't know what to do, whether to pull these rivets and see what's behind here. Like, it's only a 3mm wire, so we might be able to squeeze it behind here. These are the LED lights, so we can't go pulling those out. So I'm not too sure what to do yet. I will figure that out. So I may have found a Starlink wire up throughout the canopy, throughout the rooftop. So this is the LED light. I've just popped it out and there's a little bit of clearance behind it. So I'm thinking, can we get this 3mm wire in here and then actually just pop this light back in? So let's see what we can do. So I'm thinking if we take the wire from its insulation, we'll actually be able to squeeze it in there, because one wire will go one side and the other wire will go the other side, and then we should be all good, because it actually does almost fit in there, and that'll be so sick. Now I've taken the insulation off, it's actually going to work. You can see the LED is pushed back in to its home. And now I'm thinking I want to redo this because I don't want two separate cables, I just want the one cable. So now I'm going to have to sort this out and then we can run the cable up. Okay, so we got our wire all run. You see it hanging just here. Now I ended up using harness tape on the harness here. So we just got one harness and then it runs all the way up through the lights and up through here. So I don't have a way to mount my Starlink at the moment. I want to try and engineer some sort of gas strut mount so it comes up when you put the tent up. So once I work that out, then I'll be drilling a hole through the tent. So that'll probably be in another video. But for now, the wire's run. Now I want to see if my lights still work, because yeah, it was a little bit rough with them. So hopefully these LED strips are still good.
Now I did forget to show you guys the finished product of what I came up with. So this is it. We got the DC-DC converter fitted in there with a fuse, so it all looks nice and neat and hopefully doesn't catch on fire with the heat. And then I was just testing here the voltage coming out. So as you can see, it's climbing up above 20 volts, so the converter is working as it should.
About 2 weeks since I installed the system, I've just been going on a few trips and testing the Renogy system out. And so far so good. There is a few issues I'm not happy with. One of them being the Bluetooth system. Everything connects by Bluetooth, and I've noticed some of those things dropping out. So sometimes it can't talk to the battery or the DC-DC, and it's just a pain. You open up the door, you look at the screen, and there's no data on there. You have to turn it off, turn it back on. But that can be solved with CAN bus cables. So everything has CAN bus connectivity. For some reason, out of everything I bought, didn't actually come with any cables. So I need to buy the CAN bus hub and cables separately. So I'm going to go and do that. That should sort those issues. And the other thing is the inverter. I've had some problems with the inverter. When I plug my phone into it, it makes it go absolutely crazy. And I've tried it with a few other phones and it's the same thing. So there's something going on with the pure sine wave side of things that's causing issues there. So we've got to look into that. But other than that, everything seems to be fine. And I really like the feature of the starting battery being charged. So when the solar is charging the auxiliary battery, once the auxiliary battery is full, it'll actually switch over and charge the starting battery. So you also always have a healthy starting battery, which is a bonus. I also did get around to putting a Anderson plug on here for the fridge. So we didn't have a cover on there before. I got a cover and we put that on there, so that's all neat. And other than that, I think it's all good enough for now. It's a pretty basic 12-volt setup, and that's what I like. I don't like messy shit everywhere, so that'll do for me. It's plenty enough. It's all I need. But anyway, that'll do for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.